Good evening once again to everyone here, those of you joining us on this Zoom link, and those of you following on YouTube, on Facebook, and on IKTV. Thank you for joining us. Before we go any further, we'd like to invite the Lord's presence. I would like to invite Dr. Patrick Antoine, the president of Bacol, to open with a word of prayer.
Yeah, dear God and Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening. We come before you in humility. We come before you giving thanks for that which you have preserved in our lives, the groundings of our faith. We come before you asking that you may guide these proceedings this evening in the way that you would wish us to go, that you'd order our steps, that you would guard our tongues, that you would recognize, dear God, that we come before you seeking mercy, that we come before you seeking justice. We understand and we know that you are a God of justice and a God of mercy. We also know that you are a God of love. We just want to thank you for the opportunity, though, to convene. We pray for all of those whose souls are with you and those who have departed, even now as we come before you to conduct our business affairs. We want to thank you for life. We want to thank you for all the things good, and we anticipate that you would continue to do a good work in our life. Through Jesus Christ, our Lord, amen.
Amen. Thank you for that, Dr. Antoine. As you can see, you're in very capable hands. Dr. Antoine wears many hats. Apart from president of Bacol, you can see that he is also a qualified prayer master. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting your faith and your funds to the British American Insurance Policyholders Group. Over 2 years now, we came to you and asked you to register for a legal action that was being brought by the Bacol Group on behalf of its policyholders in the Caribbean Court of Justice. I'm pleased to advise that we have over 80% registration from the policyholders who are affected by the British American collapse. So we thank you once again for your confidence in us. Now, before we go any further, I'd like to ask you, please, as you enter, make sure your microphones are muted. We will have presentations from Dr. Antoine and from Mr. Gregory Pantin, the instructing attorney in the case. And you will have an opportunity to ask your questions after the presentations are finished. We'll take 2 questions per person, and then we will move on. You can post your questions in the chat. If you're looking at us on Facebook, you can post your questions on Facebook. And if you're looking at us on YouTube, naturally, you can post your questions there, and we will pick them up and pass them on to the relevant person. So, as you know, Bacol represents policyholders in Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, St. Kitts and Nevis, and Montserrat. And things have been moving along steadily since we last spoke. We have been updating you from time to time with press releases. And at this point, Bacol has decided that it was a good move to come back to you and speak to you in person on what has happened and on what is going to happen in the very near future. So without further ado, I'd like to pass you on to Dr. Patrick Antoine, the president of the British American and CLECO Policyholders Group.
Thank you very much, Cleo, and I'm really happy that we could be having this meeting this evening. Unfortunately, both Greg and I, this is the attorney, and I have had the deaths in our families yesterday. And so we're just going to ask that you be as efficient as possible, because we both have, the family engagements that go with having to deal with the night after. It's a heavy time for all of us. But look, we understand that these times are, of course, familiar to all of you. And it is for that reason that we have decided that despite the exigencies in our own life, we'd make ourselves present. What I want to do is to ask Greg, this would be Gregory Panton, who is our instructing attorney, lead instructing attorney, to give us an update on the legal side, if only because I think his own departure is a little more pressing than mine. Mine is at 7:30 and his started at 6:30. So I'm going to ask him to come in and speak, and then we can ask him questions, and I'll be here with you so that we can take the other matters that are sort of institutional and less legal on board at that time. So you just flip the agenda around. So I'm going to, Greg, I'm giving you the floor. Thanks. Gregory has been locked out. He got dropped and he can't get back in. Can you try again, please?
While we wait for Mr. Panton.
No. He can't get in. So he's been trying.
We're addressing that.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And while we wait for Mr. Panton, I'd like to urge you, all of you, wherever you're joining us from, please to go to the Bacol website, bacol.info, Bacol, BACOL.info, and register with your updated contact details so that we can stay in touch in the future. Do we have Mr. Panton in?
He is not in yet. He's still trying. So let me give colleagues a sense while Greg gets back in so that we maximize the time. You there, Greg? Still trying?
Mr. Panton is back.
Or you want to speak on speaker? Yeah, let me let you speak on speaker so you can think. Greg is having problems, so we're going to try it this way. Cleo, see if you can hear him. Greg, go ahead, please.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the difficulty and thank you for your time.
Can you hear?
Clearly.
Go ahead, Greg.
Okay, right. So we have missed this sequence. Are you ready for me to give a report?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, everyone. Once again, apologies. I wanted to be part of this whole meeting, particularly because after these last 2 years, I'm meeting with you periodically. I wanted to personally, you can't see me on video, but personally announce that we have a hearing date for our trial in this matter. It has been long in coming. We've gone through different rounds of procedural wrangling with our opponents to help the court project manage this case, which is a heavy case for the court, just given the number of litigants. But we have hearing dates for the substantive hearing, and that will begin on February 21st of 2024. All right, so I give that as the date, and I can speak a bit now about the lead up to that date and what it's going to involve. We have already complied with some of the final procedural steps to be ready for trial, and we have a few more that are upcoming that we are well on our way to meeting those procedural deadlines. And really, that's going to involve now the formulation of our evidence of a few named parties and additional witnesses, as well as the formulation and filing of our legal arguments for the court, all which will happen before the hearing. So between now and December and then January, we will go through an exchange of witness statements with our opponent, the state of Trinidad and Tobago. We're going to have an exchange of our written arguments with them, and of course the right to reply. And the court at the last case management conference has indicated its interest in hearing CARICOM's views on the interpretation of the treaty in our case. So CARICOM will also receive the information and provide its views or its submissions to the court, which we will also be able to respond to. So that's where we are currently in the process moving forward to get to the trial date and the hearing. As well in thinking this through. At the last or second to last case management conference, the court has identified in project management this theme. What it wanted it to do was to really only deal with the evidence of 4 named claimants. It did not order them to be representatives, but it mentioned that we should select 4 of those claimants that tend to represent similar interests to some of the other groups. So we are going forward with 2 institutions, 2 individual persons, so that the factual context as it relates to those types of parties will be fleshed out and illustrate the issue and the legal issues for the court. It does not mean that if you're not given evidence that you are on the sideline. It just means that for project managing this and recognizing parties have, in theory, been similarly circumstanced, the court has recognized the value in not having to hear every one of the parties who has been named in the claim. Right? So that's where we currently stand on that component. The other big question that we have been considering and are close to making a determination, the parties that have been named and identified after the filing of this case, how we're going to treat with bringing them to justice before the court. We have a recommendation from the legal team which will be implemented. Because they're not yet implemented, I don't want to go too much into the legal theory behind it and what it's going to involve. We're not leaving people out of the spring. It has been what we've been considering on a matter of timing and legal impact and ensuring that we do not necessarily burden the court or slow down the progress that we have made so far. Okay, so that's where we currently stand. Good news is we have our hearing date and we're well on with the trial for those hearing dates. In court time, it's coming fast upon us because it's in February and there are steps to be done before that, which we are doing and are on our way to complete as we move forward. Patrick, anything else in particular you needed me to speak on right now?
No, nothing else. Let me give them the opportunity to come with a couple quick questions. I know you're pressing time and when your event started, but let me give them an opportunity to see if we can get some quick questions. It would be helpful if we got the people who are not speaking mics muted, right? That would help us. So why don't we open the floor for some questions, Sir Greg, and then we can take it from there.
So at this point, we would like to invite you to submit your questions. You can use the chat function If you look at the bottom of your screen, those of you using Zoom, if you look at the bottom of your screens, you'll see a little speech bubble. You can click there to submit your questions.
Let's get the questions going because Greg has his event. So if we have some questions on the legal side, let's get them, please. So there's a question.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I have a question from Lisa Farnham. She's asking that if policyholders are not mentioned by name, does it mean that they're represented by a case manager? If policyholders are not mentioned by name, are they represented by a case manager?
Greg?
If I understand the question, if a member is not mentioned by name in the claim, if they're represented by a case manager, is that the question?
That's the question.
Okay. No, it's not really working that way. The case managers are, if you call them, the administrators of the various groups to help gather the information, disseminate information, feed information up to the legal team. They are currently named parties, and they are currently a group of people named, yet not yet joined as a party, right? So in the lead up to the case, the court has recognized that there were other people who have been other people other than the death named claimants who have been affected, and the court gave us directions to go out there and find them and list them and gather the information. The court has not said that we will not deal with these people. The court has said we will deal with a few of them first before we determine how best to deal with anyone who's still a remainder. Right? So you're not really represented by a case manager. You have not been a named claimant, but just a member of Bacol. You have not been ruled out. You are in the group that will be affected by this sample group that's going forward with the case. I hope that clarifies. Patrick, anything else you want to add there?
No, I think you're fine. Spot on, no issue there. Cleo, let's go quickly.
We have another question from Mr. Richard Fraser. Is the goal of this action 100% restitution of the principal to all claimants?
Greg, he's asking whether, clearly I can answer, but he's asking whether the goal is 100% restitution.
When I say, all right, so for my, I would say we are pursuing 100% compensation of what you have lost compared to what has been given out to the Trinidad and Tobago policyholders. The reason I'm not saying 100% of principal, some of the claimants may have received some measure of recovery already. So they're not going to be entitled to 100% to take them up on par with what the Trinidad policyholders would have gotten. All right. So if you call the 100% to put you on equal footing with everyone else who has been protected, that is what the 100% is.
I would just like to.
Yes, that's clear. That's clear. I was just telling him that's clear.
I would just like to add, for those of you following us on YouTube and on Facebook, you can post your comments wherever you are viewing the stream, and we will respond.
Okay, so Greg has to run. I did tell him we would get him out of the chair latest 7. We have 4 minutes exactly left. Any burning questions?
I would like to suggest that if you do come up on some questions that you'd like to have Mr. Panton answer, let me take this one, sorry, before I say what I was about to say. At the last meeting, this is coming from Cavell, at the last meeting with the accountants from Barbados prior to COVID, we were told that Mr. Dupree had lost his Florida case and had been fined. We were told to expect further payments. What has happened in the interim? I'm not sure that this is a question for Mr. Panton, Dr. Antoine.
Yeah, so in respect of the CLICO matter, which is what I think this is in respect of, we are engaging with the let us just say the managers having regard to the decision made by the court in Barbados. Now, the reality recently is that the CLICO has been put back in the hands of the shareholders. And this happened last week, and I am to request a meeting with the shareholders of CLICO. What's happened in that meeting with Barbados, I'm not aware of, yeah, because I wasn't there. But yes, the case was lost some time ago in the US courts. The decision has been domesticated and it's been in the court in Trinidad and Tobago for some time. Mr. Dupree and his side engaged in, let me put it this way, the assets were not as simple to get at as it was believed. And so that's been part of the challenge. So I'm saying 2 things. I'm saying, yes, the matter in the Florida courts that have been domesticated in Trinidad is one issue, right? That's largely a Bacol issue. The second issue is the CLICO issue. And we are to, in fact, request a meeting with the new board of directors of CLICO. So for those of you who would believe that we've not been following up on the CLICO side, let me tell you that I have had 5 meetings with Mr. Dupree's side since we started this campaign. 5. I had 2 in Florida. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I'd just like to clarify on Cavell's behalf. He said it was a meeting for British American policyholders in St. Kitts.
In St. Kitts? Well, if it's the British American policyholders, it's our matter, which we've been talking about, which is only the domestication of the case, of the ruling from Florida. And what's happened there is that the judicial managers have been going after the assets, which is the other track I was talking about, going after the assets, right, of Mr. Dupree and of CL Financial. And that's what's been difficult. That's what's been problematic. That has to be settled. We're not a party to that. Part of it has been settled and there's a confidentiality agreement. That is the explanation I want to give about that one. So it's not Barbados, it's St. Kitts. Fine, then we're talking about the same thing. That's where we are. But I also gave those who are online an answer because we got 2 questions on the CLICO side before this meeting. And what I'm saying is that we are going to request further meetings with the new board of CL Financial. That's the answer to the 2 questions that came before via other directors to me. And I wanted to say to colleagues that we have met now 5 times with Mr. Dupree and his side in a view of 2 questions on the CLICO side before this meeting. And what I'm saying is that we are going to request further meetings with the new board of CL Financial. That's the answer to the 2 questions that came before via other directors to me. And I wanted to say to colleagues that we have met now 5 times with Mr. Dupree and his side in a view of 2 questions on the CLICO side before this meeting. And I'm not sure what's happening. I stopped talking some time ago. That was like a rebroadcast of what I said. So I'm back with you now. Greg, okay. I'm going to let you run.
sorry for the early departure, it's unavoidable. Have a
Please
blessed
accept our condolences. I'm sure I speak on behalf of everyone here, both to you and to Dr. Anton.
Bye-bye, Greg.
Dr. Anton, we have a few more questions. Would you like us to reserve them until you're finished with your presentation, or shall we go ahead and do?
No, let's go on to the questions. There's not much of a presentation outside of what Greg has said, because what Greg has done is that he's given you the hard lines, sort of the key deadlines with the court. I want to just correct a couple of them because I live with it. He has other cases. This is my only one. So we have a pre-trial hearing on the 23rd of January. Just take a note of that. Greg has the hard stuff in his head. That's fine. Then the court has reserved 3 dates. The first date is the 21st of February. The second date is the 22nd of February. And the third date, if it's needed, is the 23rd of February. What the court has sort of decided to do, following the pattern of international courts, is to have most of the submissions in writing so that they can study it, and when they meet, it's really for them to get clarifications and to give further directions in terms of points that need to be clarified, on which they need to interrogate further evidence. So that's what will happen between the end of this month, when we submit the witness statements, and I have the letters drafted and received from Greg now. I will send those out tonight to the 5 key witnesses, and when we have the pre-trial hearing. So in November, the defendants get an opportunity to respond. We make some further submissions later in November, which they will respond to. Then there is one more opportunity from their submission for us to make another submission in December, to which they will respond. And then all of this goes to the pre-trial hearing on the 23rd of January, 2024, right? What Greg said in respect of the policy holders that have been registered, if you wish, but have not yet been joined. What he is not saying is that we are yet to take a decision, and we are going to be doing that in the coming 2 weeks with respect to how we proceed with that. And there are 3 options, which I can't get into now, but no one has been left out of the démarche for justice, so to speak. Okay, so that's really the substance of where we are. And what is most important, I will be asking my other directors on the board, Hugh Dolland and my dear colleague from Antigua and Barbuda, to assist with making sure that we have the witnesses ready to work with Greg to give their statements, right?
For recovery of the principal, is there any chance of being awarded interest? This question is from Ronald Hughes.
We don't know what the court will do. We think there is a chance. We think that in keeping with other, other cases in the domestic jurisdiction, where interest is oftentimes awarded, that we have a very good basis once the court finds in our favor to get interest attached. So that is the answer. And it comes based on equity, because we've argued that Trinidad and Tobago policyholders, to the extent that they got their funds back several years ago, they have been able to benefit from the interest.
Okay, Elena, you're asking how can you reach a case manager and how will the settlement be distributed? In terms of the case manager, I can answer that bit for you. Each island has been assigned a case manager, and on the Bacol website, bacol.info, bacol.info, you will be able to find the listing of the case managers and you can contact the case manager for your country. So that is the answer in terms of how do you contact your case manager. And I believe by now you would have registered with a case manager. Dr. Antoine, in terms of how the settlement is going to be distributed, I leave that to you.
Well, when we come there, we certainly will deal with it. The judicial manager has a register that's extremely well kept, which we have actually benefited from in getting to the court. Getting that register so that it can be used as the master list to redistribute is easy, right? So whether it's done through the judicial managers that you registered with, all of whom have been selected because they're officers of the court, or it's done directly, or it's done through the judicial manager who is in the Bahamas. It's a detail that we can get to later.
And Ms. Taylor would like to know, what do you hope to achieve in the meeting with the new shareholders of CL Financials?
Well, let me say that I'm not a naive man. But when I met with Mr. Dupree on the two occasions, I would say about 5 and 4 years ago, there was a commitment that if the company was given back, that he would seek to engage paying back the policyholders who were damaged. It is only God who is not a man that he should not lie. I therefore cannot put my head on a block, but I certainly have been engaging with the hope and perhaps the chance that if there were an opportunity for an amicable settlement, it could still be had. So we have been engaging, and we will certainly be doing so now that there is a new board, and essentially now that the portfolio has been handed back to the new board, which still has participation from the government of Trinidad and Tobago on it, right? So what I would like to get from that is to continue the dialogue about whether there is any opportunity for an amicable settlement.
He's asking if any further information is required in terms of witness statements and what needs to be collected from registered policyholders.
Let me say that from the policyholders, we need nothing else except the 5 expert witnesses that we have. Depending on the direction in which the attorneys decide to take the matter of the additional policyholders who are not yet joined as parties, at that time, if there is anything else required, not of all policyholders, but of a few as witnesses, we will let those individuals know. For the broad body of policyholders, no, we do not need anything else at this time.
On YouTube, how many persons are involved in this action?
If we take persons as both natural and legal persons, we're talking about nearly 2,000. Nearly 2,000. Yeah, but if Stacey is on, let me ask Stacey for confirmation. Stacey, how many persons are we, both natural and legal, meaning both companies and individuals? What's the numbers? Roughly, nearly 2,000? Stacey is having difficulties too.
In the meantime, Dr. Antoine, we're being asked.
It's about 2,000. Let's leave it there.
We're being asked, how long do you expect this to last?
We thought it would have been a short journey once the court started hearing the matter. We're 2 years, we are a year plus down the road. We know that this matter will be wrapped up next year for sure. Whether it's the second or the third quarter, we are not sure. We are anticipating that depending on the approach taken for the other policyholders, Yes, I keep saying that, that it could be wrapped up perhaps by the end of the second quarter, so that when the court goes to recess, we expect that if a judgment isn't given then, by the time they come back, we will have one. If the attorneys decide to take another route, we expect that the case will be wrapped up in the third, sort of by the end of the year. We're looking at October, November of 2024. So I'm saying this, we expect that sometime between July and November, whichever route is taken, that the matter is going to be essentially one that the court would have given a judgment on.
Of the website address, it is Bacol, BACOL.info. It is also posted in the chats wherever you're following the stream, Bacol.info. And we'd like to urge you, as you visit that site, please take the opportunity to register and make sure that we have your current contact details. Do we have any more questions? Dr. Antoine, we have over 2,000 people registered. How are you managing these 2,000 people? Mr. Pantin said already that 4 or 5 people have been chosen to give witness statements. How are the other people included in the action?
Let me see if I understand your question well. How are the others included?
Yes, just for clarification, so that people understand that no one who has been registered is being excluded from the action.
Right. So let's go back to where we were. And I'm sorry that from my last meeting earlier today that Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Service Industries backdrop was there. You should have told me. Inappropriate. Let me just say that where we are with the policyholders is this. There are 3 sets, right? One set, the policyholders that very early, when we started the initiative, signed on, and we were in a hurry to make sure that we got the case lodged with the court, so to speak, right? You can say launched, and we launched at the time with what we had. So we launched with the Grenada policyholders, the Antigua policyholders. Then we built the momentum and established the relationship with the other policyholders, and that formed a second group, right? That would be Dominica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, right? Montserrat. Then there were a couple other people who came late, and they came after we made the submissions of both the Grenada and Antigua policyholders that are included, those that the court asked us to register, and we did, and they are the ones from the other countries. So they are not yet joined, but they are notified and known, right? And then we had a third set who basically joined late, and we've also sent notifications for those, okay? So that's where the 3 sort of policyholders, as far as the court is concerned. Now, everyone is entitled to justice, right? And the court recognizes that, so that no one is going to be left out. But rather than go through every single policy and every single policyholder for over 2,000 policyholders, which would take us forever. If I were Trinidad, I would love it. In fact, at one point, they sort of intimated that is what would have to be done. The court said, let us pick a couple of, let us call them representative policyholders. Let us look at the merits around that, right? So it's narrow. We can examine that, and whatever comes out of that, then the others, yes, would essentially just be grandfathered, right, into what the findings based on those representatives are. And then we have the decision for the other islands, and the view of Trinidad and Tobago and the court is they too will benefit. And we have an opportunity to make some legal decisions around whether we wait or whether we strike now in other directions. So I'm not getting into the details, but the legal team is heavily engaged on strategy to make sure that we optimize the opportunity to bring all our arguments so that everyone can be heard. And please don't, I'm not going to go further on this, but we know the legal team knows exactly what it's doing with the space that's been granted by the court.
Mr. Johnson, David Johnson, I hope that your question was answered in what Dr. Antoine just raised, but if not, please let us know. We understand, unfortunately, that some policyholders are now deceased since we started the registration drive 2 years ago. We extend our condolences to you. And Ms. McSween would like to know that if the policyholder has died and no beneficiary is named on the policy, how do relatives go about collecting once a settlement is made?
It's the same way that they would collect in any other matter where a loved one dies and doesn't leave a will or whatever it is. If they leave it, it's simple. If they don't, then the same process holds. It's property. It's just like any other property that you would have really attached to any person who goes without very clear directions on what should be done with it. So it's the same thing. There's nothing different. No one's going to, as it were, run off with it, right? In fact, the court will ensure that that those persons' rights and those of their families are preserved in whatever emerges out of this, having regard to the unique circumstances around this as well. The unique because it's taken so long and so many persons have passed on, which I have to say it really has been a burden for all of us. I say to all of my case managers that when you do in fact call and advise and the policyholders of one death here and another one there from time to time, it is not that we are immune. It is that we just have to stay focused, because the truth is that when I get calls from 5 or 6 of you in 2 weeks, you know, the humanity in me cries out as well. But because I also advise from a trade strategy perspective, because I come from the community law side, if we don't stay strong and stay focused, we're not going to be in a position to help you. So we've really had to do that. It's been a difficult journey. I know it's been difficult for you. It's been difficult for me. It's been difficult for the legal team. You know, we've lost parts of our legal team as well. Let's not forget Ambassador Thompson, who is no longer here with us. So it's been a very difficult journey. I just wanted to add that in responding to the matter of the way in which the property and the compensation for those who have passed on is going to be treated. We're really sensitive to it.
Dr. Antoine, you mentioned compensation. Mr. Daniel Nunez, I think he may have joined us a little late. He's wondering, what were the Trinidad and Tobago policyholders paid, and therefore what is it that we're expecting to accomplish for the Eastern Caribbean policyholders? I believe he's talking in terms of the percentage to be.
Understand. Yeah, so they were paid in 2 blocks. One block was paid, I want to say it's about 80 cents. Those were the non-assenting policyholders. And the assenting policyholders were paid, I want to say, nearly $1, right? So that you have 2 blocks, those who went with what was offered and those who did not go with what was offered. And so you can say that their payments would have been between 80% and 100% of the principal, right? What we've done is that we've gone back to the time when that was paid, right? It was paid around 2000 and I want to say 2010, 2011, yeah? And what we've done is that we've now made the point that once this judgment goes in the direction that we expect it to go in, we are then going to append interest from that time coming forward. So when you do that, right, taking the usual course of case law in the domestic jurisdiction, it should take us, even if you look at the 80% benchmark, it should take us up. Of course, you would have to minus from that whatever you are paid already by the judicial managers in the Eastern Caribbean, because you know, you couldn't essentially benefit twice. So that is the way it's going to look, you know, in the ideal outcome that we've crafted ourselves, right?
Okay, so once more, just to remind you, please update your contact details. It's on the contact page of the website, Bacol, BACOL.info. Those of you following us on Facebook, you appear to be shy. There's no need to be bashful. If you have questions, please let us know. We're hearing from friends on YouTube and we're hearing from friends on Zoom. It would be nice to hear from you as well. Do remember that we have some time constraints this evening. There are some commitments which have to be met. So we would love to have your questions now. If not, please feel free to use the website. Once again, post your questions there and we will respond to you soonest.
Good. So it looks like we've exhausted the questions.
It appears so.
And I do want to extend the heartfelt appreciation of Simon Davenport. As you know, in the UK now it's 5 hours ahead, so it's sort of just after 12, is it? Yeah, but he's certainly with us, and we have been meeting as a team up until last week. So these matters that we're discussing here, many of them are benefiting from live ongoing considerations. That's why there are some things that we can't specifically speak to. But we are all very committed to making sure that we achieve the outcomes that we set ourselves. Clearly, it's up to the court, but we must leave nothing that we can look back on and ever have to feel that we did not give up our best. That's what the team continues to do, including Greg and Miguel, etc.
Thank you, Dr. Antoine. If we have no further questions at this stage, we'd like to wrap up. Do bear in mind that the next key dates are the end of this month when Bacol will be submitting its witness statements, and then the defendants will respond, and there'll be a little bit of back and forth in the month of November. There's a pre-trial hearing on the 23rd of January, and on the 21st and 22nd of February 2024, there will be a hearing, and if necessary, on the 23rd of February also. Dr. Antoine, if we can just take one more question before we go. Are the Eastern Caribbean governments involved in any way with this case?
No, we had to do what is required in terms of requesting the Eastern Caribbean governments to join us to expose the case. And as was expected, none of them did. It's not an unusual thing that governments do not typically expose cases. They leave it to policyholders, groups like ourselves. Well, this is the first policyholder groups, but the individuals to do that. We have explored because one or two governments have been willing from one point to another, but the the basis on which we have premised our case was different to the basis on which our government would have to premise theirs. And we figured that it wasn't beneficial to have the partnership at that time. And I think it was a mature decision by whatever governments may have had an interest in recognizing that as we recognized it. So I can say, though, that our OECS governments have been very, very supportive. And there are a couple of them that we could not have gotten this far if they hadn't supported by giving us access to information and by giving no objections on a number of issues that would have arisen where we needed access to information. So I just wanted to say that, to be fair to them.
Dr. Antoine, Phoenix Belfield and Joycelyn McSween, they both want to thank you and Mr. Dolland for taking on the fight on behalf of the policyholders and congratulate you for all of the work that has been done. Mr. Belfield, you are asking if the policyholders will be provided with a summary of what was discussed here this evening. What we will do is put the link to this meeting on the website so you can look at it again if you wish to. If you have a specific question, please let us know earliest and we will provide you with a response.
Let me just recognize that the dear comrade Belfield is with us and thank him too for the early leap of faith that he took in recognizing that we needed to do this for OECS civilization when he traveled to Grenada for that hearing. You must never think, my dear brother, that these things are forgotten. And I just want to again publicly thank you and acknowledge the tremendous support you gave us in causing the judicial managers to enter a major amendment in their document, which allowed us to be here today. Thank you.
We all thank you, Mr. Belfield. Even at this late stage, can a negotiated settlement with Trinidad be reached?
Yes, a negotiated settlement can be reached at any time. And we are always open and will always be open, even down to the day of judgment by the court to a settlement. And there is another case like this, for instance, in Ireland. It was settled just before the judgment was delivered. Yeah, so the answer is yes. There's precedence, which is why I refer to the Ireland case. And on our part, we really just want to be compensated and to do what's right on behalf of our policyholders. So the answer is we're always open. And when I meet with the CLECO, with the CL directors, board of directors, I am going to be doing that again in the spirit of seeing if it doesn't go in this direction, what is the scope for it going in that direction. So we're open. We're always looking for all solutions to this crisis. It is a crisis.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anton. Ladies and gentlemen, on Facebook, on YouTube, on IKTV, and here on Zoom, we want to thank you once again for joining us. Remember, the key dates going forward are January 2024, the 23rd of January, and the 21st and 22nd of February 2024. And that's when the legal team goes back to court, to the Caribbean Court of Justice, to present their arguments on our behalf. Dr. Antoine, thank you for being with us. Thank you for giving us an update. And although Mr. Pantin has left us already, I'd like to thank him as well for being here with us this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, please update your contact details so that we can provide you information as soon as it comes to hand. My name is Cleo Huggins. I represent Hiruna Media in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Have a wonderful evening all. Please stay safe and stay well.
Thank you guys, and do have a good night, and God bless all of you.